Morning to all. According to our previous video, we revised the fourth unit, first chapter. In that, we completed first three concepts. In this video, we are going to discuss the next three concepts. In that, the first concept is interface design steps. Second concept is WebApp interface design, and third concept is design evaluation. So these are the four concepts we are going to revise in this video. So now come to the first concept in today's video. First concept is interface design steps. So when you want to develop or design an interface, you need to follow four different steps compulsory. So those steps are: first one, define interface objects and actions. So whatever the interface you need to develop, so what are the objects are related to that and what are the actions you need to perform, those things you want to define first. Nothing but the different operations what you want to perform with the help of that interface, you want to define them first. That is your first step you want to follow in the development of or designing of interface. Then second step is you want to define the events, nothing but user actions. So we already discussed, if there is an event means it compulsory cause the state of changes in the user interface. So what are those changes that takes place? If there is a state means it is model based on behavioral model. So you want to define the second step is you want to define the events, nothing but user actions. Then when you come to the third point, you want to depict each interface state. So you want to identify and mention what are the interface states are there for the end users. Then when you come to the fourth step is indicate how the user interpret the state of the system. So how the user interfacing with that interface, you must identify that one. So these four steps are the most important steps when you are developing the interface. Then come to the points which are given in the interface design steps. So there are 3 points are given in the interface design steps. So what are those means? First one, applying interface design steps, and second point is user interface design patterns, and third one is design issues. So when you come to the first point in interface design steps concept, the first point is applying interface design steps. Applying interface design steps means when you are developing an interface, what are the steps we discussed above? Apply those steps, those important steps in the development of interface design. So applying interface design steps means nothing but applying what are the above steps we followed, those things must be applied in the development. That is nothing but applying interface design steps. Then come to the second point is user interface design patterns. So we already discussed in our regular classes what is mean by patterns. So patterns means nothing but it is an abstraction that prescribes a design solution to a specific and well-bounded design problem. So based on the pattern, it provides the solution what you all want to develop. So based on that problem or solution provided by the pattern, we can develop the design of interface. Then come to the third one is design issues. So when you are developing an interface or designing an interface, you are facing number of problems. So in that the common design problems are given here. In that the first one is response time. How much time the interface is taken to respond. So it's one of the major issue in developing an interfaces. In that response times also, we have two important characteristics. They are based on the length also. The response time is depend on and its variability. So then second issue is help facility. How we are providing the help in the interface designing. So even if you are not provide the proper help facility, it also creates some issues in the development of interface. Then third issue is error handling. when you are developing an interface or designing an interface, you must provide the error handling facility also. So if you are not provided the proper error handling facility, it's also create issues. Then next point is menus and command labeling. When you are developing menus and providing commands in your interface, you must provide the proper labeling. For example, if you take MS Office in Word, MS Word, so we are providing menu bar. In that, we are providing some menu labels. So in that manner, the understandable, user understandable menu labels wants to provide. Otherwise, it is also create or provide issues. Then the next one is application accessibility. So whenever a user wants to access, if you they need to access your application. If they are not accessible, it's also create issues. So that nothing but application accessibility issue. Then the last one is internationalization issues. That means whatever the interface you develop for your application, it must be accessed by throughout the world. Your interface may not be developed for a particular region or for particular people only. It must be accessed throughout the world. So if it is not like that, it's also create issues. So these are the design issues in interface development. This is the first concept. Then come to the second concept. Second concept in today's video is WebApp interface design. Up to now, we discussed the development or designing of interface for general applications. But in this concept, we are going to discuss about how we are designing an interface for web applications. Now come to the point. What is meant by a web applications? Which are the applications are running with the help of internet. Such type of applications are called as web applications. So now how we are going to develop an interface for such type of web applications. Before entering into that, when you want to develop an interface for web applications, we must know the answer for these three questions. So those three questions are: first one, where am I? That means when you are developing an interface for web applications, that interface wants to provide the answer or inform to the user where he is, the location in the content hierarchy it wants to provide. So that one must be given in the question called where am I. So that means the location wants to provide to the user where he is in the interface. That is the first question. The second one is what can I do now? That means by using this interface, what the user can understood in current options. That means what are the functions, what are the links, what are the contents is relevant to that operations. That means everything wants to provide in that interface. So the second point says when the interface is designed, the user must know easily what he wants to do. He must have that clarity while seeing that interface. Then third point is where have I been? Where am I going? That means the interface wants to provide the facility of navigation. That means it wants to provide a map to the user, and by using the path he can move elsewhere in the web app. So whenever you want to develop a web interface for a web application, you must provide the answer for these three questions. Then now we are entering into the actual concept points of web app interface design. So here we have two concepts. One is interface design guidelines and principles, and interface design workflow of web applications. So based on these two concepts, first we are going to discuss interface design guidelines. So for interface designing, Bruce Tagnozzi suggested some guidelines. So he suggested basically three guidelines. For your convenience, I given those guidelines in red lines. Please note down those things. The first one is effective interface are visually apparent and forgiving. That means whenever you design an interface, if it is an effective means it always visuable for all the people. That means it is open to all the users and it is forgiving. That means if you have done any mistake, it may not create any problems to you. It must solve that problem. So that is the first suggestion provided by Tagnozzi. Then second suggestion is effective interface do not concern the user with the inner working of the system. That means, so effective interface may not concern the user for inner working of the system. So whatever we provide, so it provide in the direct communication. That means whatever the works you are doing, it's carefully and continuously saved for the user for further usage. So in that manner, an effective interface wants to design. The user may not get any difficulty. Then third suggestion is effective applications and services perform maximum of work. That means an effective interface, it will do its maximum work and it takes minimum information from the user. That means whenever you design an interface for web applications, it provides a easy manner for the user. So these are the three guidelines suggested by Tagnosi for good development of interface design. Then comes to the principles, interface design principles. So nearly there are 11 principles are suggested here for interface designing. In that, the first one is anticipation. So anticipation principle means in the web app, it must be when it developing, it must give the clarity of to the user for the next move. That means anticipation means give the clearance to the user for the next move. What is the next movement he wants to do? That clearance wants to provide it. That is the first principle. Then second principle is communication. That means so whenever you are using the web application interface, the interface wants to communicate to the user. So where he is, what is the status of the user, he wants to communicate. So interface wants to communicate with the user. Then third one is consistency. Whenever you are designing an interface, it must be consistent. It may not create any confusion to the user. That means by using navigation controls, menus, icon and aesthetic designs and providing more colors to the text and shape and layouts must be provided there and create a good design. So it may not create any confusion. It is more consistent manner it wants to develop. Then second principle is controlled autonomous. That means interface should facilitate user movement throughout the web app. That means the user can move throughout the web application. That must be provided. So that is your controlled autonomy. The next one is efficiency. That means whenever you're designing a web application interface, it should optimize the user's work efficiency. So whenever you design, it provide more efficiency while user works. So that is the fifth principle. Then come to the next principle, sixth one, focus. So when you are designing a web application interface, it must and should focus on user tasks. So what are the tasks the user wants to perform? So it wants to focus on those tasks only. No need to focus on any other unwanted tasks. So only focus on user required tasks. Then the next one is human interface objects. That means in this principle, what they are saying is the vast library of reusable human interface objects have been developed for the web apps in the interface. That means reusable library files wants to develop for the web applications. Then the next one is learnability. Learnability means whatever the web applications you are designing, it must be learned by all the people. So when you are learning, it wants to minimize the learning time, and once if you learned, it must be minimize the relearning concept also. That means you may learn easily. So it may not provide any difficulty to you when you are learning. So your web application interface must be developed in an easy manner. Then next one is maintain what product integrity. That means in this principle, what they are saying is it must be automatically saved. For example, by using your web application interface, if you are doing any works, the works must be automatically saving. When you lost anything, it may not create any problem to you. So automatically the works wants to save. Then come to the next principle is readability. So whatever the interface design you are developed for web application, it must be readable by all age groups. That means youngsters and old people both can read it easily. Then the last principle is track state. So track state means the state of the user interaction should be tracked and stored so that the user can log off and return later to pick up where she left off. That means, so when you are using a web application, if you are moving from one point to another point, so in middle, if we stopped our work, then what the interface wants to do means it wants to store up to that and track the state. So after if you come again, then it wants to provide you from where you stop your last. From there itself you want to start again, not from the starting onwards. So that is the concept of track state. So these are the 11 principles provided to you for the development of user interface. So based on these principles and guidelines, now we are going to develop the interface that is discussed in the concept called interface design workflow for web apps, how the work is flowing for the development of interface. The work is flowing on the basis of 11 points are given here for the interface design. Then come to the first point. The first point is you want to review the information from your requirement model and gather what are the information you need. That is your first one. So you want to gather your information to develop your user interface design for web apps from requirement models. After gathered, develop a rough sketch of the web app interface layout. So develop a rough sketch, rough image based on the information you gathered from requirement modeling. Then based on that rough sketch, map the user objectives into specific interface actions. So in the requirement model, the user specified some objectives. Based on that, what are the actions you given in the interface? Both of them must be mapped and find out the matchings. After find the matchings, define the set of user tasks that are associated with that actions. So define that matching tasks. So based on that matched task, you want to design in the fifth step as create the storyboard screen image for that interface action. Means a rough image, rough screen image is created. That is called a storyboard. After designing the storyboard, so you want to refine the layout. The general layout of your information is developed based on the storyboard, and this is used as an input for your aesthetic design. Aesthetic design means actual design. For your actual design, the storyboard and your interface layout, rough sketch, are providing a image to you. That means a rough diagram will be provided to you. Afterwards, in the seventh step, you want to identify what are the user objects are there which are required to implement the actual interface. So in the seventh step, what they are saying is you want to identify the actual interface objects what you need to implement in the interface. Then after identify the objectives, then you want to develop a procedural representation for the user interactions, and you want to develop the behavioral representation. So these two representations wants to develop to get an idea about how you want to develop an actual interface. Then finally describe the interface layout of each state. So you want to define the layout here. Then finally refine and review the interface design model. So by using these 11 steps, we can define how to develop an interface design. So these are the interface design workflow for web apps. Then then we are going to discuss the third concept is nothing but design evolution. So here the actual interface design, how they are following means in the first step, just see the diagram. So preliminary design, the rough sketch is given here, or the rough design is given here. Based on that, the prototype is developed. We already discussed what is mean the prototype in first unit, prototype model. In prescriptive process models, we have prototyping model. That means the overall design is not developed. The part of design is developed in the prototype and delivered that prototype model to the user or evaluator. So if he evaluated and he satisfied the design means he passed that one to the designers. Designer is also evaluate that one and satisfied means the interface design is completed up to that. Otherwise, if the user or the designer is not satisfied with the prototype, then it again asks for modification. That's nothing but design modification stage. In that, we modified the prototype for our required manner or user required manner. Then again, the prototype is built. Then again, it passed to the user and designer. Whenever you are getting the complete picture about your design, the evolution is going on in this manner. So this is the concept of design validation. So today we discuss the second part of first chapter's second part of revision. It contain three concepts. One is design steps, and second one is WebApp interface steps, and third one is design evolution. So based on these three concepts, I given some assignment questions. Here also, these assignment questions are 2 marks questions only. In that, the first question is write about interface design steps, and second question mention some interface design issues. The third question mention different web app interface design principles. And third question write Bruce Tarnowski guidelines. And fifth one write few words about design evolution. So these are the assignment questions I given to you. So write the assignments and submit in SC Google Classroom. Thank you.